Hallo, hallo. Ja, welcome. Hallo. Ja, ich heiße Sie alle herzlich willkommen. I think we're doing this in English. Thomas, Junghans, fantastic. Welcome. So we are here for, of course, a sad event. The passing of Hans-Jochen Diesfeld, the founder of what is now the Heidelberg Institute of Global Health. But we're here to celebrate an extremely important life for us and a forefather of our practice, our science, and I'm very grateful that so many of you could make it here in the Alte Aula. It's the best place where one of the faculties is, of course, medicine, from where Hans-Georg came. It's the best, Hans-Jochen came, it's the best place to celebrate a life that has given us a lot, not least an institution, but also I think, and that's what I want to talk about, a little bit a practice of science. And I think, Oliver, you talk about moral clarity and a purpose for life. So I think there is an Ausstrahlkraft, a continued lightning rod for our science, our research, our institution, that of course Hans-Jochen started and we are still benefiting from massively. I do know that he was very happy that the Institute is thriving, the Institute is growing, and that the seeds and foundations that he lay are powerful today and will continue into the future. And the mission is probably still very much the same, and I just want to highlight 5 dimensions of mission that I see in Hans-Jochen's life and oeuvre and science and practice. So it is the community basis for his research, and he came from a tradition, it's not so long ago, today we shudder when we hear these words, he came from a tradition of tropical and hygiene, and we would no longer use these words, and we would no longer think in these terms. We are in the midst of decolonized global health, and he turned this into community health and international health, and became something much more powerful and much more meaningful and in a much more equal partnership. And I think the first major dimensions that he and a few people in his epistemic community and amongst his mentees, and many are here, Bokar, Rainer, Olaf, Albrecht, Gerard, Oliver, so his mentees are highly successful in this world and are continuing this tradition of community-based health research for the betterment of the community where the research takes place, and of course via science, hopefully for many other communities in this world. The second major dimension is it's the community-based research that he represented powerfully and successfully in the most vulnerable populations. So a focus on, of course, Burkina Faso, other communities, and then within Burkina Faso, children and pregnant women and young mothers. So a focus from the start and as a rote linie through his research and workings, his life, that is the focus on the most vulnerable populations in communities where health is lacking in the most severe ways in this world. And the third dimension is, and I think he was proud and extremely happy that we are not pivoting in a different direction, but really building on the foundations that he gave us as an institute, Rainer, which is intervention research. And when we look into his writings, he boosted health systems. He was an early health services researcher in Africa, in many low and middle income countries, and we are continuing that tradition even more strongly, a science of action, a science of intervention, because we have little time to lose and people are acutely dying. As you know, we are in a state of the world right now where the biggest global partner for development and health has broken away, USAID. Germany is now a country, probably the second largest country, or the largest country now, supporting, working with global partners on the betterment of health in communities that are amongst the most vulnerable in this world. And against this backdrop, I think it is clear how powerful his oeuvre, his workings are still today. So from health systems research to health services research. And then the last two dimensions, I mentioned mentorship. I think it's a tradition where we really can learn. Hans-Jochen was a fantastic mentor, and it's visible in the success of his mentees, many of whom are here today, and his policy engagement. So he was a loud voice, and someone just walking in said to me, are we still heard as he was heard by the public, by policymakers, and are we slightly failing him? Do we need to be louder, especially in this day and age, in that mission to bring health and work with global partners to enable health in the global communities where those partnerships are most needed? So I want to welcome you. We have a really dense program, or deep program, with many fantastic speakers, many who couldn't make it from abroad, Colorado, Geneva, many places in this world. And of course, I want to welcome also Hans-Jochen Diesfeld's family, who is with us on Zoom and couldn't travel today, and welcome to everybody who is online, and massive thank you also to everybody who sent a video presentation and a series of remarks, not in person, but in this hybrid world that we're in, totally legitimate in video, to share and celebrate Hans-Jochen's life and to be grateful for the foundations that we are standing on in our life and science today. So thank you, and over to you, Rainer.
I think I won't go on the rostrum. So this is a celebration and not a mourning. He died 7 months ago, as you all know. And we had time to mourn, but now is the time to reflect and to celebrate his life, his personality, and what he gave us. I had a very funny and interesting correspondence with a postdoc of ours. I said, hey, are you coming to the symposium? And she asked, whose symposium? Yeah, it's Professor Diesfeld. Oh, I don't know him. I have to Google him. Well, she's 30-something, so she didn't know him personally. And I wrote back, I'm sure you may have not met him, but you know him from everything that he inspired in us. The teaching, the research, the community service, and so forth. So we are here now to look at him from, I think, 15 different viewpoints, and you will see they are overlapping, because they have to overlap. The one person and his one oeuvre that we are talking about. So forgive us if some of the orators repeat what others have said. It's just a confirmation of this observation. Yeah, I want to start with, because some may not know Jochen so well. He is an internal medicine doctor, physician. He contracted smallpox himself, as it's like the psychotherapists who have to do psychotherapy themselves. So he contracted, and he wrote his first paper, Deutsche Medizinische Wochenschrift, and you see Herrlich, Diesfeld, and Schmidt. And he contracted and survived, and without any sequelae. So that is a kind of Feuertaufe, wie sagt man das? Fire baptism, through which he went. And I'm sure it has, he mentioned that very often when we talked, that this was something that impressed him as a motivation. There he is. So then he became the doctor in the Haile Selassie hospital in Addis. He was the emperor's physician. After that, he did the diploma in tropical medicine and hygiene in London. Today, everybody does it. But at the moment, at this time, it was a pioneering thing to go to London and do a diploma in both tropical hygiene, which should be tropical medicine, and public health. So there was already, the germs were already laid for his future career. And from that, he was hired, and I'm so glad that very senior people from the South Asia Institute are here. They will even talk to us and give us their view. It was the Institute of Tropical Hygiene and Public Health then at the South Asia Institute. Everybody thinks it has always been at the medical faculty. No, he pulled it out there and brought it into the medical faculty. But at the South Asia Institute, he learned many things, he said, in his book, by the way, which Oliver is the editor of. He learned about geomedicine. Now we talk about climate change, environmental, planetary health, and social sciences. As you know, the South Asia Institute is multidisciplinary and mainly social sciences. So he was the odd physician there and had to open his ears and eyes to learn also the other disciplines. And he did a very important, I need some water, a very, very important study also for showing, foreboding, his interest in the working condition and the living condition of people, poor people. So he had a 3-month study in Orissa in India about the social and health conditions of coal miners there. And there are pictures, they are really in absolute poverty, living there and suffering from the coal dust and everything. And so he was already showing that he had an interest in looking at the fate and the health of the poor. I'm sorry. So, and then he moved the institute from the South Asian Institute to the medical faculty. I don't exactly know when, but it was in the 60s when this happened. And his vision of the university, he told me and others this time and over and again, that he thinks of the university not as a production of knowledge, but as a tripod with research, service, that's tropical medicine, that's outpatient, and teaching. And these three are not separate legs, but they are very linked to each other. What you do in research, you teach, and what you do in consulting, and in consulting patients, you teach and you study and so forth. He really was a master of fostering this. And of course, that is the inventor of the tripod, and he was such a universally knowledgeable person. He gave me lectures, but in the positive sense, of Wilhelm von Humboldt, till it's not your von Humboldt. I'm sorry, this is the Alexander, but here is the Wilhelm von Humboldt who turned the educational system of Prussia on its head, and we are still benefiting from it. He introduced, for example, peer-reviewed journals, not Jochen, Wilhelm von Humboldt. Okay, so here are some of these tripods. I want to go through them. Research. Yeah, today we talk about qualitative research as if it was had always been there, but it wasn't. We talk about mixed methods, we talk about geospatial analysis, and he already did this 50 years ago, so he was a pioneer. North-South partnership at eye level. Here's a slide where he must have cracked a joke, because the dean of the medical faculty of Ouagadougou, next to him, of course on the right-hand side, he is laughing his head off. But the professor of climate science of Toulouse University, who is with him in this advisory board for Nuna Health Center, he must not have understood this, so he's explaining this. His French improved a lot, by the way. When he came first to Burkina, he did a course at an age of 50 or 55 in French. So he was always exploring new things. Health services research, Till has mentioned that. action-oriented, yes, with Till we are really driving into the area of intervention research. And then the first real research project in this area was an EU project with the University of Ouaga. So many of these things were already laid at the basis of his career. And if I have a talk, I asked Aditi for permission. This is illustrating North-South partnership at eye level, because here it is an African scientist who explains something, whether successful or not, the picture doesn't show, to the student of ours. Aditi is from New Zealand, but of Indian descent, and she's struggling with something on the... So we have teaching, it goes in both ways. We had Matamora as a teacher of this master course and so forth. So, yeah, and well, my journey started when I met him. Most of us have met him in the preparation course for volunteers of DED to go to foreign lands. But when I was there in Nuna before the research started, he came as an evaluator again, with an African from Zaire at the time, and from another scientist from Brussels. So this kind of north-south balance was early on embedded in his life. And the typical posture of the evaluator with a pen and writing down what he sees is on the right. By the way, he traveled with the wrong passport, the passport of his wife, and was turned back, understandably, and came later. This is the left picture, and he had to catch up with his fellow evaluators. It was a 2-week evaluation, quite a serious one, and he and the others said, you need to do research. So from evaluation, from consultancy to research was the very natural step for him. And here you see Jochen in his early age, me in my early age, and Adrien Nouktara, who was the leader of this research project, and he will also appear in the video of Burkina Faso. And there was a quality of care arm in this research and the utilization of health services. So my first household survey, and he was there for at least 3 weeks. And Bokar, you were the medical doctor of Solenso at the time. I will introduce Bokar in due form when it's his turn. So, and here is he with his finger. If you can see this, there's a circle, and the circle has parts which he has separated off, and that is his explanation to us students how you sample a village population without having a roster of the addresses. Well, there are no addresses. You don't even know how many people live there. So that is geographic sampling, and how to do it randomly. And the randomness was boy, all the names of the household, he taught us, were written on little leaflets, and they were then mixed in front of everybody in the village, so that nobody thought, oh, there's something that you are the elected household and you are the elected household and the others don't get anything. So it was transparent in front of everybody. He was on multiple scientific advisory boards. WHO, very important one is the technical committee. He was on the board of the helminth side. You know, the helminths, for those who are not medical, are very nasty worms who have little worms, for example, the microfilaria, and they can do many bad diseases, including river blindness, which most of you know, of course. And it was eradicated in Burkina Faso, accompanied by Jochen. But this picture is from the Nuna Advisory Board, and you see here, do I have also a pointer? No. Of course, you see Jochen, and then to his left, you see Gilles Bibot, who is next in the program, professor of anthropology, medical anthropology of Montreal University, and they were like a duo, and for I think 10 years or so, always meeting there, always talking about health and philosophy and so forth. Pioneer in teaching. Those who are from the Institute or the old hands from the Institute know that none of his courses was straightforward. Straightforward, I mean conventional. He started with evening seminars for the aficionados and aficionadas. Those who like to know about medicine and problems of health in different countries. There were maybe 15 people but they were really like a community of very interested people. Then he accompanied the entire sending of doctors, not so much nurses, unfortunately, but doctors to Africa and Asia by the DED, by the Catholic and the Protestant organizations. Everybody had to go through his course. This is why he had such a family of followers, if you like. So I went through this, and I see at least 15 here who went through this as well in the audience. And then he turned the table and said, there are so many medical students of Africa, of African lands and Asian lands here, and if they go back after having seen this glitzy medicine here, they are shocked because they don't have the instruments, they don't have the money and so forth, no health insurance. So he designed a course on reintegration. Dieter, where's Dieter Hampel? Yeah. That was revolutionary. Nobody, to my knowledge, has done that before, to take care of our 10 or 15% of students from low-income countries to prepare them for their re-entry in their homelands. And then he started, of course, this master course, which at the time there were no master courses in Germany. It was a special permission from the Ministry of Education of Stuttgart and a pilot project, Community Health and Health Management. And here is, I think it's the youngest photo of Jochen that I have, a little bit coquette, stepping his right foot, or his left foot, and there's Susan Rifkind. If anybody remembers, anybody else come forward. That's the first class. And then the course was led for, I don't know how many years, at least 10 years, by Matomoro, a wonderful Tanzanian physician who put his stamp on the master course. And now we have 2 tracks, and we have 25 short courses and so forth, but the elements were already there. The mold was done. And that's what Jochen Diesfeld, so much what we owe to him. He had a very close relationship to African students. In the middle of the left is Gaston Sorgo. He is now at the World Bank, big health for Africa. And left is, of course, Jochen. And to the right is Gilles Bibot again. And on the right, he gives a certificate. He was examiner of Ouagadougou Medical School. Pioneer in service to society, and the service is one hand, medical, clinical, tropical medicine. Thomas, I see you in the very last rank. Thanks for coming. And Thomas has put this to new heights, and now it is Claudia Denkinger who has taken over a wonderful service to all patients, not only those who travel, all patients in Heidelberg University Hospital who might have a tropical disease. And the other one is EVA-Plan, and I see a lot of members of EVA-Plan. Evaluation and Planning is a consulting for governments, for World Bank, sort of evaluating. So that's 2 branches of services. And he was so keen that we are not only in our ivory tower and doing our science alone. Paradigm change. That is, sorry, I don't know why I have such a, maybe the air is very dry here. Anyways, paradigm, you mentioned this still, that in our lifetime, there was a big change of philosophy and what should we do with countries in the global south, as we say today. So he started with helminths. And I asked for a doctorate with him on helminths, and I'm very glad that it didn't happen, because that would have made me probably projected by myself in a different area. So then he turned into health systems and the health for all. So helmets to health, that is the talk, the title of my talk. And at the time it was health for all, primary health care, rooted in the community, as you said. And this is the helmet part. This is river blindness. You saw a lot of these pictures 50 years ago. Young people guiding the blind through the village. And that is Jochen now, you know, completely turn the tables of the concepts, going down to the community, sitting down with mothers and asking questions and so forth. Yeah, then came the WHO district. Everybody had to have a health district, every country, and we taught district health. And then came international health, and then came global health. Anyways, without going into detail, you probably know this. He was not only a follower, but he was a promoter of this change. And now we are in the global health world, and some talk about planetary health. Not so sure whether this is very helpful, but global health is certainly something. And this book he gave me when I took over from him. And I thought, wow, that sounds a little bit love and management, how does that go together? And when I read it, and I just translated the main points there, management not by formal authority, but by natural authority, by trust, respect, participation, support, and natural authority. It was really, I wouldn't say his Bible, but it was certainly one of his guidelines to run an institute. So I was, after having read this, I was impressed. Some pictures here. Bokar. By the way, I have to introduce him. Bokar, can you stand up, please? Yeah, Bokar Kouyaté has accompanied Jochen almost from birth, almost. He's a medical doctor, and he was the district health officer when we did the Solenso study. Then when we did bigger studies, he was Secrétaire Général. It's the one who runs the ministry. The minister is very often an economist, but a sort of figurehead, you know. But he ran the ministry when we set up NUNA, we meaning, and then he jumped in as a director of NUNA himself. So what a wonderful career from ministry to research institution to district health officer. And this is obviously Linzertart of birthday, I don't know which birthday it was, 10th or 20th of the Centre de Recherche en Santé de NUNA, CRSN, and Jochen was there to celebrate this with us. This is the picture that I sent you, Till, because you talked about continuity, and Jochen is on the left checking his email on his cell phone, and of course me, because of my height, I'm in the middle, and Till is left on the right-hand side from you. So it was a very lucky succession where nobody sort of shelved what the predecessor had done, because it was all a natural continuation of the seeds that he had sown. And he got the order of, how do you call this order of Mérite du Burkina? Order du Mérite du Burkina Faso, and rightly so. Yeah, and here is with Andreas Ruppel and Rainer Külker, one of the many celebrations we had. I see music in the back behind Andreas, so this kind of meetings with music and with, well, we have some drinks afterwards, is also something that we relished. He liked to be with everybody, everybody really liked him. I didn't hear of anybody who complained. Yeah, that brings me, he's a forebild. I didn't see any good explanation into English. Role model is maybe not, I leave it, forebild. He had deep respect for everyone, and Olaf, you will go into much depth of this. That's just my personal mixture. Deep respect. Everybody got an answer, every heavy, everybody was treated respectfully. Quiet sense of humor. It wasn't the slapping of the loud laughing out, but a very nice, quiet sense of humor, contagious. He was curious and extremely knowledgeable. He taught me the origins of the Ottoman Empire in a Kilimanjaro restaurant. You know, whenever I was at his lips when he talked about history, particularly. Great leader and teacher. We've heard this. Modest. I think modesty and low key is one of his characteristics. Strong commitment to the role of science. And he brought Brecht into the play. And Brecht will also be mentioned by Gilles Bibot in another piece, but he mentioned that to me and to many of you. Galileo, Brecht, Galileo, the drama, science should lead to the betterment of the human condition. So, out of the ivory tower, do something, get something done that the community benefits. And a deep sense of justice, not only in the institute, but also in the world. He was sometimes a political radical, against injustice as he saw it in our society. Yeah, and that is a sneak preview of what Gilles Bibot will tell you right after me. Gilles mentions the Jochen referencing the Ausnahme und der Regel, the rule and the exception and the rule, which is already a piece of extreme social commitment or fight against injustice in the 20s, written by Bert Brecht. So it's not by chance that Gilles is mentioning this. Yeah, and I thank him a lot. 50 years I haven't met him, but I'm only one of hundreds of people whom he impressed. And with this, I thank you and turn over to Gilles Bibot. You may be surprised why they don't look alike. It is because Gilles Bibot is, by the way, a professor of, as I said, medical anthropology in Montreal University. He couldn't come. He was already in Tunis on the way to Heidelberg when he got the message that his niece was terminally ill, so he had to return and send us, in all this upheaval of family drama, a note, and he asked Bocard to read it. Of course, translated from the French, by Deep L, I assume. But you did a great job. So, Bocard, reading the message of Gilles Bibot.
Okay, thanks, Rainer. And I'm going to read what Bibot sent as a message to be read during this symposium. Now it is Bibot is talking, not me. Thinking of Ernst Jochen Diesfeld, a conversation immediately comes to mind. We were in the four-wheel drive on the road from Ouagadougou to Nouna that time. This happened at least 20 years ago. He is the founder of a tropical medicine research institute. He is a man who had taught field research methods to hundreds of students for many years. He, an internationally renowned scientist, suddenly began talking to me about Bertolt Brecht, an artist and a playwright. We had been discussing methodology used by epidemiologists and used by anthropologists, wondering what these two disciplines had in common. And then Jochen suddenly started talking to me about Brecht. Jochen then made me understand that Brecht had taught him something essential that he had never forgotten. This something from Brecht has inspired him throughout his career and guided him throughout his life. As a medical doctor, especially during the years spent doing research and practicing medicine in Africa, in elsewhere in the world. Jochen told me that he has learned from Brecht. Even the smallest gesture, even what seemed to be simple, must be considered with the utmost attention. One must also observe what happened to the daily life of ordinary people, learn about their ways of doing and thinking by observing their behavior, discover how people behave toward another if one wants to be able to live in a world other than the one into which one was born and raised. In other words, one must try to understand the habit and custom of ordinary people, both at home and abroad. Jochen told me that it was Bertolt Brecht who first taught him all this. A few years later, that conversation with Jochen, I discovered that Brecht, in his play, as Rainer mentioned, is the house name. Forgive me if I didn't pronounce it very well. The house name und die Regel, the exception and the rule, demonstrated how one should behave and act when in a foreign country. Brecht's play tells the story of a journey that took 2 months, a rich industrialist and an ordinary worker, to a desert in search of oil. In front of them flows a tranquil river evoking peace. What Brecht criticized in this play is the capitalist world, a world that divides society in 2 classes: the rich who own the oil and the exploited worker who are forced to support wealthy exploiters. In this case, both types of men are caught a kind of terrible vicious circle. And these 2 classes will continue to exist as the poor are serving the rich. If the rule of the system continues to be followed, then an exception will have to arise if the vicious circle is to be broken. Later, I understood that Brecht had probably told Jochen that is only after defining a rule that one can create the condition for an exception to appear that allows the existing system to be corrected. In reality, it was his way of life and thinking and his way of seeing the world, his own and that of the others, and his way of being a man fighting for justice that Jochen wanted to talk to me about on the dusty road leading to Nuna in the Burkina Sahel. Discreet and modest, he told me about himself through what he said about Brecht. I remember Jochen as someone who seemed to feel close to this man of the theater who spoke about justice. No doubt, Jochen fight for justice and his struggle to ensure that sick people have access to quality care are connected to Brecht's moral stance and to be the profound sense of justice that is always the artist always demonstrated. I may say that Jochen's reference to Brecht were probably initiated by the fact that I told Jochen that I greatly admired Brecht and he was talking about. I wanted to be present in person in Heidelberg to pay tribute to the great man that was Jochen Diesfeld. Unfortunately, I had to cancel my trip to Germany due to illness in my family. You know that the meaning of a person gives to his life is not written, and that it is difficult to penetrate the mystery of any life. In the case of Jochen, whom I knew when he was already over 70, I think I was able to delve somewhat into the inner or inhabited and discover some of the great human value that guided him in his life and gave it its meaning. Jochen was, it's true, a scholar who influenced thousands of people through his teaching and his intellectual work. Generosity, modesty, respect for others, a sense of justice, all these qualities contributed making Jochen a thinker who, I hope, will serve as a model for future generations. Death exists to rejuvenate humanity. May young people honor the memory of Jochen Diesfeld by guiding their own life according to the value he placed at the heart of his life and as the center of the intellectual legacy. Farewell, my dear friend, Gilles Bibo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I took a picture and sent it to Gilles. He will be very happy.
Okay, thank you.
This idea of death is made or is there to rejuvenate society. That is what Gilles said. But that those who are dead live on through their actions on the now younger ones. And we will hear Bokar in the movie from Nuna, and Bokar brings the idea of the baobab tree that falls. Wir sagen das auch in Deutschen, wenn ein großer Baum fällt. Nicht? Warte mal hier. And that is, I think, the picture that we can't show this alongside your talk, but that is the baobab. That should be then Jochen, the big baobab. But then there are small baobabs, and there is even some brushes. I don't know whether these are very small baobabs, but that's really the legacy of Jochen, to have influenced and have left so many fertile seeds on a fertile ground. So just a foreboding of your baobab paradigm. Can we have the film now from Nuna?
C'est avec une immense tristesse que j'ai appris le décès du professeur Diesfeld en Allemagne, et je prends part à cette cérémonie d'hommage vraiment pour rendre une restituer en fait ce que cet homme-là a fait pour le Burkina Faso, la Haute-Volta d'abord, puis le Burkina Faso, et je dirais même l'humanité. Et ce qu'il a fait, je crois que si la santé publique est vraiment bien appliquée au Burkina aujourd'hui, et même je dirais en Allemagne, c'est en partie grâce à lui. Il a été vraiment un pionnier pour que la santé publique soit valorisée dans nos méthodes, et vraiment c'est quelque chose qu'il faut saluer. Je dirais que, à mon avis, si je dois comparer Diesfeld avec une image, c'est l'image d'un baobab scientifique qui est tombé. En ce sens que c'est un géant scientifique, mais il a aussi sémé beaucoup de petits baobabs avant de partir. Et je crois que dans la vie d'un homme, c'est ça qui reste. Qu'est-ce que j'ai fait, c'est important, mais qu'est-ce que j'ai laissé après moi qui va contribuer en fait, à rendre la vie meilleure sur Terre. C'est ça aussi qui est très très important. Et Diesfeld a vraiment joué ce rôle-là. Je souhaite de reposer en paix.
Donc c'est une très mauvaise nouvelle que je viens d'apprendre. Parce que ma première rencontre avec Diesfeld, c'était lors de sa restitution de l'étude qu'il a faite pour Safari. Et nous avons fait une très bonne équipe d'institutions avec les discussions qui sont suivies. Et c'est après ça que l'étude de Solenzo a commencé avec toute son équipe. Et il était là sur place pour l'aspect organisation et mise en place de cette étude. Cette étude qui a été à l'origine de beaucoup d'autres études qui se sont suivies et a permis de relever un certain nombre de faire ressortir, par exemple, la contribution des accoucheries villageoises en ce cas, et également l'aspect tarification des actes qui n'étaient pas encore mis en vigueur et qui a démarré au cours de cette période avec l'initiative de Monaco dans l'état de responsabilité. C'est pour moi une occasion de rendre un grand hommage à cet homme qui a servi non seulement le Burkina, mais aussi les études, parce que je me rappelle, il a décrit la contribution dans la lutte contre l'anxiété avec la mise en place, la lutte contre les mousses, c'est pour lequel il a pris part et il a changé cette mouche-là. Donc en tout cas, je salue sa mémoire et je retiens vraiment un grand homme qui a vécu très utile, surtout pour nos pays en Afrique, qui étaient qualifiés de pays pauvres, mais pour lesquels il y avait un certain nombre de problèmes et dans des pays il faut passer par la santé publique pour essayer de monter. Je rends hommage à travers son université et également je salue son épouse, qui était aussi pauvre. C'est vraiment des affaires
Je ne sais pas ce que je peux dire par rapport à l'illustre disparu. C'est vrai que quand moi j'étais directeur de la santé de la province de la Kouchi, qu'on a eu à se connaître dans le cadre du lancement du PRAPAS. Diesfeld, c'est un professeur, c'est un éminent professeur, mais plutôt, pour moi, c'est un papa. Outre les connaissances qu'il a en matière de santé publique, moi, je le considère comme un papa parce que, en même temps que vous travaillez ensemble, il partage ses expériences avec vous. Tout ce qu'il a comme expérience, il essaie de vous transmettre ça et de faire en sorte que vous puissiez faire travailler exactement comme lui. Moi, je l'admire beaucoup. Je n'ai pas beaucoup de mots à dire à son endroit. Je souhaite seulement que là où il continue toujours, lui nous voit, c'est nous qui ne le voyons pas. Il continue toujours de nous appuyer et de faire en sorte que tout ce qu'il a eu à faire au Burkina, là, ça puisse continuer de prospérer. C'est quelqu'un qui est humble, outre les connaissances qu'il a là. Il n'en fait pas trop cas souvent, mais il fait en sorte que ce que vous voulez faire là, il vous oriente. Il est très humble et je souhaite que son âme repose en paix et je souhaite à son âme bon repos, qu'il soit près du Père, parce que moi je suis croyant et que ce qu'il a pu initier au niveau du Burkina et peut-être ailleurs, que ça puisse continuer de prospérer pour que, en tout cas, ce que lui il a comme vision, ça soit au bénéfice des populations, notamment africaines et du Burkina en particulier.
It is with deep sadness that I share this tribute to Professor Jochen Diesfeld, the founding father of PRAPAS, which later became CSM. Although I did not have the privilege of working directly with Professor Diesfeld, the institution he founded provided me with an invaluable stepping stone in my research career, which I began at PRAPAS in 1996. His vision and leadership created an environment where young scientists from Burkina Faso could learn, grow, and contribute meaningfully to improving public health. I also had the privilege of being mentored by one of his own mentees, Professor Rane Zawon, whose guidance and commitment carry forward Professor Diesfeld's legacy of excellence, humility, and scientific rigor. Professor Diesfeld's influence continued to live on, not only through the institution he helped build, but also through the generation of researchers whose career and value were shaped by his vision. His life work will continue to inspire all of us who are part of the journey he began. May his soul rest in peace, and may his family find comfort and pride in the extraordinary legacy he leaves behind. Thank you.
This is Maurice Seye, speaking from Madagascar. It is with deep sadness that I learned the passing of Professor Diesfeld. Although I did not have the opportunity to work directly with him, the little I knew of him when I was working as a NUNA district medical officer, and during my collaboration with the PRAPAS projects, which became later NUNA Health Care Center, convinced me of his major role in establishing the center, training young professionals, and promoting research for development. My few contact with him when I was studying public health in Heidelberg, through my supervisor, Professor Reiner, revealed me a person who was available, humble, sociable, and always ready to assist. His commitment and contribution will remain a source of inspiration for all those working in public health. I extend my sincere condolence to his family, his loved one, and all those who had the privilege of working with him. May his soul rest in peace.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Dr. Alicia, the Acting Director of the NUNA Health Research Center. The center that was established thanks to the foresight of Professor Hans-Jochen Diesfeld, who will mourn today, and also thanks to other partners. First of all, I would like to express my sincere condolences to the family of Professor Diesfeld, the colleagues, collaborators, and all of us who are his scientific head. I met Professor Diesfeld in December 2003 when I joined the NUNA Health Research Center as a young medical doctor during the meeting of the Scientific Advisory Board, who he was the president. I was immediately fascinated by his foresight and his rigorous criticism, balanced by recognition of the merit of the team and providing encouragement to the team for continuous improvement. Later, when I was appointed as the director of the center, I always benefited from his wise and rigorous advices. That was the teaching for me while driving the center toward excellence. Today we mourn a great man who has been a scientific pillar for many of us, sometimes acting as a scientific mentor and sometimes as a father. Professor Diesfeld, your passing leaves a great void, but your memory and all the lessons you taught us will live on forever in the truth of all of us who shared unforgettable moments with you and benefited from your wisdom. In Africa, we used to say, no one dies if he left behind a solid achievement. You leave behind a great legacy of an international research center, the Nuna Health Research Center, that you helped it create and shape into what it is today. You also leave behind top-level young researchers so you don't die and cannot die. I will always remember you for your wisdom and your incredible determination to see public health research contributing to improving the life of the rural communities of Nuna area and by large Burkina Faso and beyond. Rest in peace, our professor.
Marcel Tanner, the former dean of the Medical School of Basel and head of the Swiss Tropical Institute, sent us today, or was it yesterday, his talk, and I hope that we were able to put him into the sequence now. Marcel Tanner.
Good afternoon, a very good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear friends. It's my great pleasure to make a small contribution to this very important, wonderful Memorial-Symposium for our dear Jochen Diesfeld. I'm very sorry that I'm not with you, and I really regret this deeply, because it's not just a meeting, it is a very important day for me to really remember what Jochen has done for all of us and for global public health. Jochen Diesfeld is a wonderful mentor for me, wonderful mentor, colleague and friend. And he accompanied my life, my professional life, but also the private life, for the past 47 years. 47 years, I first learned about him and his thinking, his planning, his visionary thoughts when I was working in Tanzania, trying to implement the Tanzanian public and private health policies that they had adopted, particularly after Alma-Ata. Jochen Diesfeld's thinking and call for action, as I would say, were very instrumental and inspiring for really being successful in contributing to primary healthcare implementation in Tanzania and in other countries where I had the pleasure and privilege to work with. So, Jochen's stimuli are really something that is part of our thinking and of our acting for a long, long time. And we at Swiss Tropical and Public Health Institute were enormously profiting from this exchange of this mutual learning for a better health in our world. So we not only thank Jochen and the team, we not only thank this network of partnership that has enabled us to really engage in this process of making a little contribution to a better world. And I think this is particularly important now in these days to remember that. So we are deeply thankful, and yes, we lost him very sadly, and he will still continue to live in and with us, because we remember here Salvador Dali, who said, to say goodbye is actually the birth of remembering. And with these words, Jochen will continue to live and be with us for all the time. Thank you very much as well for really having brought us together to remember this moment and to look ahead together with Jochen and all what he did with and for us. Thank you very much, dear colleagues and friends. Have a good afternoon. And again, my deepest apologies that I'm not with you. My thoughts are with you, with all of us. Let's move ahead together in this spirit of mutual learning for change. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we thought as a rule with our meetings, they are always over time, and there are always a succession of different interventions. So we always, since Jochen's time, use music to loosen up a little bit. So this is Stefan Klonner, my colleague from the South Asia Institute, which is so well represented here. And he's an economist and my friend, and he has a wonderful mastery, apart from economics, also of the cello. And I'm accompanying him, but I'm not really extremely good at the piano. Jetzt kommt wieder eine Video-Message von Frau Susan Rifkin. Those with white hair remember that she is the one who helped Jochen set up the master course in 60, I don't know, very long ago. She will certainly tell you. Can we have the video?
Good afternoon. Greetings from Denver, Colorado, where the sun is out and it's lovely. I am sorry I can't be with you in Heidelberg. I did have the impression that I would be able to join the people and be with this group again, and I miss you all. I'm sending you my best wishes. I've been asked to give a reflection on my time in Heidelberg, and it was the very early days. And so I wrote at a request from Wolfgang Biechmann for the magazine Carrera a piece about my reflection on those days. I'm going to share that with you now and hope, I'm sorry it's in English, both in the magazine and my presentation, and I hope it will at least give you some feeling that I'm with you and very much looking forward to being with this ceremony. I first met Professor Diesfeld at a conference in Antwerp in 1985. At the time, I was in Hong Kong working for the Christian Conference of Asia and completing my PhD that focused on developing healthcare for Asian communities outside hospital services. Our discussions led to an invitation to join a new department at the University of Heidelberg, created to provide an MSc entitled Community Health and Health Management in Developing Countries. Having returned to the United Kingdom and to a post at the University of Liverpool, I was fortunate to learn about the Heidelberg course in 1987 from Wolfgang Biechmann, who was getting his master's degree at the university at the time. The Heidelberg course was new and challenging. Based in a medical school where healthcare focused on healing the sick, the idea of prevention in communities lacking access to care, let alone prevention, demanded a new commitment and approach to healthcare. Diesfeld was up to the challenge. Having spent long periods of time in healthcare, not only in hospitals and medicine, he committed his effort to develop a primary healthcare, the approach confirmed by the World Health Organization in 1978, highlighting the need to address health needs outside hospitals, doctors, and medicines. His effort focused on developing a course within the Faculty of Theoretical Medicine at the University of Heidelberg. The Heidelberg course degree focused on this necessary for addressing specific, not public health problems. The course was enabled students to stay in one place and concentrate on meeting health challenges beyond disease and to share experiences with participants from countries who faced similar health challenges. Diesfeld was visionary. The Heidelberg course not only had students from countries outside Germany, it focused on people living in the so-called developing countries and providing ways to develop health care to those who lived in communities without hospitals and often with only marginal health services. Most unusual for courses outside Europe and the United States, the Heidelberg course made provisions for students to spend a month working in health facilities in poorly resourced area and low-income countries. This experience was shared among all course participants and reflected in the final submission paper that was critical in evaluating both their knowledge and assessment of the Heidelberg experience. I was so fortunate to be part in the initial Heidelberg course. I took that experience back to the UK, where I taught at London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and the London School of Economics. I have kept in touch with my Heidelberg colleagues and friends over the years and just used the Heidelberg experience to develop teaching in the UK and in developing a course in Kenya. Diesfeld's vision of the course given many professionals good ideas about how to provide health care outside hospitals. This approach is critical to meet the needs and challenges provision of 35 years after its inception. I wish you best greetings and good luck for everything, and it's nice to be there again, even if it's virtually. Bye-bye.
Now we have had so many people of senior age, but we wanted to have also a representative of the current master course or former master course, now doctoral student. And Olaf is here. He's the coordinator of the teaching activities. And you found, in inverted commas, Samuel Mayden, whom I don't know personally, but I will soon. Come forward. Thank you that you did this without knowing Diesfeld. But Diesfeld has projected his image to even to the now generation. He has a mic.
Thank you very much. And so, dear senior colleagues, friends, and members of Heidelberg community, standing here today, I feel both humbled and deeply honored to represent African students and the global alumni community whose lives and careers have been shaped, often in ways we could never have imagined, by the work and vision of Professor Jochen Diesfeld. Although I never had the privilege of meeting him personally during my master's studies here in Heidelberg in 2015 and 16 academic year, I came to learn about him through his writings, through the programs he built, and through the values that still define Heidelberg Institute of Global Health today. The mark of Professor Diesfeld can still be felt in how we think about health, how we learn from one another, and how a spirit of equality continues to shape our classrooms and collaboration. Through his work, we came to understand that global health is not about one region aiding another, but about shared humanity, and that through understanding begins when we see health through the eyes of the people we serve. He reminded us that behind every statistics is a story, a family, a community. That good health is not a privilege of geography, but a right that belongs to all of us. For many of us from Africa, his vision opened doors, big doors. Through the programs he helped establish, students from across our continent found a place in Heidelberg, a place to grow, to be heard, to contribute our knowledge and perspectives. Because of his belief in partnership, many of us now work to strengthen health systems in our countries, carrying forward his dream of more just and passionate world. As I journey through my doctoral training, I often reflect about the path he created, a path that connects generations, continents, and hearts. Professor Diesfeld showed us that genuine leadership is not about status or recognition, but about a people whose lives are changed through one's vision, compassion, and dedication. On behalf of the African students, past and present, I say thank you very much for the investments. And also, Professor Diesfeld, your work changed the course of global health, and your spirit continues to inspire us to build bridges, not boundaries. May your legacy continue to live in the communities we serve and in the hearts of all who carry forward your mission. Thank you very much.
So well done. Thank you so much. It looks as if you have met him. I told him it sounded as if you had really met him, but through the generations you must have. Rolf Korte, you wanted to say something, and we wanted you to say something. Rolf Korte has worked with Jochen a long time. He was the head of health of GIZ, Health and Nutrition, and as such, he had a long partnership with Jochen. Here's your mic, Rolf. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you and to share with you my great thanks, my gratitude to Jochen Diesfeld for all he has done for us, and especially for me. I have some very fond memories of him and having determined my career. I have tried to keep contact with the Institute and its predecessor organizations, like the East Asia Institute, during my student days. And so I had the opportunity to meet him early on. He even tried to encourage me to join in the India project. But somehow I didn't feel ready for that at that time. And so I had to mature a little bit in Papua New Guinea and Kenya, doing my studies there. But then when I was in Papua New Guinea, I came on summer leave after 2 years there, which was a very interesting position. But I thought, well, what do I do after Papua New Guinea? And I thought, well, let me visit Professor Diesfeld and see whether he has something as an advice for me, what I could do after Papua New Guinea. At that time, I wasn't very keen on leaving that place, but he just mentioned then to me when I visited him here in Heidelberg, and he said, oh, well, why don't you contact that new organization called GTZ? And, well, I followed his advice. I followed many of his advices, I think. And so, anyway, they said, oh, they needed somebody to take over this new the health department, or it wasn't even a department then. It was just a small work unit. And they just needed somebody. And then I joined GIZ. I thought for 2 years or 3 years I was still in a very mobile mind. And I stayed for 26 years. So in that course, of course, we did a lot of things together. Burkina Faso was an important point. I was asked to visit Burkina Faso very early on because some consultants who had visited the GIZ project the GTZ project at that time said, oh, it should be closed. There were no useful activities. But then there were the activities of the German Development Agency, DED, and we had early contact through that, of course. And though, the relationship between DED, the volunteers, and the so-called professionals in GTZ were not always that close. There was a certain amount of hesitancy. The DED were thinking they were the good ones, and there were the big, fat GTZ people who, well, were earning too much money and so on. That was a bit of a problem. So one of the first problems I had to solve, a conflict of opinion in Burkina Faso, how should health centers be built? And there was a different opinion about some wanted to put tiles on the walls, and the other ones wanted to put just cement and paint it. I can't remember who was on which side at that time, but it was one of these totally useless conflicts. And then, of course, there were all these people who trained, and it was just mentioned that there was a lot of training going on in Heidelberg. And lots of people started their career and their orientation there. And I would say, without that resource of people having gone through Jochen Diesfeld's courses, I think GTZ, I still have to practice the different organizations, GTZ would not have a very good human resource base. It was very important that many of the people who worked in the volunteer service later on joined us in GTZ, and that I think helped me a lot to become reasonably successful in that organization as well. It took many more years to really become friendly until GIZ ultimately took over the organization. That was probably our goal from the start, but we never said so. Anyway, I remember many joint missions with Jochen Diesfeld, and one was particularly impressive, as was just after Namibia became independent, and we took a long travel through Namibia, and it was a trip to remind us how wrong the white dominance in a country can take a country, cause a malformation about human beings under such a apartheid rule. And that was a very, very good education, I think, for both of us. And we have learned a lot from each other. And I mean, the many opportunities I had to sometimes teach here in Heidelberg and to get Jochen's advice on our programs was unique, and I would not like to miss it. And I would like to say a very, very big thank you to him for all the work, the joint work he did for us, and to have known him is an enormous privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolf. Wartet, da ist ein kleiner Augenblick, da kommt noch Herr Zingel. Herr Zingel, ich weiß jetzt nicht, wo Sie sitzen. Da. Herr Zingel hat sich kurz entschlossen, auch im Namen des Südasien-Instituts hier aufzutreten. Und dafür danke ich Ihnen, denn wie wir gehört haben, ist das Südasien-Institut sozusagen das Hotbed oder das the breeding space where Hans-Jochen got his first steps in Heidelberg.
Thank you so much. So my name is Wolfgang Peter Zingel, and I'm an economist. Sorry. And first I have to remove my glasses. So the organizer has asked me a few words about in honor of Professor Hans-Jochen Diesfeld. In Diesfeld's work at the South Asia Institute of Heidelberg University, and of course I feel honored and privileged. Although being an economist, my main qualification to do so most probably is my age. I met him first when I joined the Institute in 1971, met him throughout the decades. The Institute had been founded in 1962 by the government of Baden-Württemberg, Germany, had become a federal republic. Education was left to the Länder, states, which took on to study the various world regions. Baden-Württemberg chose South Asia as a subcontinent had to be christened after the partition of India. The new international engagement reflected Germany's success as an economic and trade powerhouse. We were encouraged to participate in development assistance for humanitarian, but also for strategic reasons. The idea was interdisciplinary research and teaching on contemporary affairs, not so much on the lines of traditional Indology and not to the likings of some colleagues. Subject ranged from tropical hygiene and public health to Sanskrit and archaeology, and South Asia was understood as Southern Asia. Heidelberg had a lively, even revolving student scene, which led to some democratization of the university, given some rights to students into the Mittelbau, that means the academics below the level of full professors. The Institute's conference became our highest body, and Hans-Jochen Diesfeld, already a reader, became an active member. The German Research Council started a special areas program, and number 16, South Asia, was on one of the first, and the action of the Dhanbad coal mines and the urban centers of Bihar became its largest project, with all academics having full voting rights. His and his students' works are witness to that endeavor. There was some backlash and rollback of many reforms. The university became less politicized. Humanities rather than social science gained more weight. The central administration felt that the Institute of Tropical Hygiene should be fully integrated in the Faculty of Medicine, already had become bigger than the rest of the South Asia Institute, and it had to rent rooms outside. Leaving the SIE was a gradual process. As Professor Diesfeld told me, although head of the department, he never had been informed officially of these decisions. So we all felt the loss. What he left to the South Asia Institute was ethno-medical working group that brought together people from health and social sciences. The tradition has been taken up by the anthropologist who used to sit here, and hopefully will be continued after the chair being filled again. Not to forget the Master Science course, Community Health and Health Management in Developing Countries, at times Germany's largest postgraduate program in the field of economic assistance. All these achievements in the face of, as he writes, a grotesque development with regard to university funding for equipment and staff, and that, as he wrote in the bulletin of the Institute. Looking back, when I was waiting for my shots back in 1974, still in the old villa on Schlossberg, where the Institute was housed, the nurse told me to wait a few minutes. The professor, and that means the first director, would be leaving in a few minutes so that they could take new needles. That shows a long way the discipline has gone. With the exposure to Ethiopia and later all over the world, he had a very different approach. Personally, I liked his dry humor. When he saw me waiting for my shots, he asked me whether I again would be going somewhere. And when I told him, he asked, "Do you still believe in it?" That I did, and also because of him and of his work. Thank you very much.
Wunderbar. Spontan ist immer am besten. So, now comes a film, I'm told. Jürgen Wacker doesn't need an introduction, but I will do it anyways because there's some people who may not know him. He is head of gynecology of Sinsheim, Kreishospital. Was? Bruchsal, ja. Ja, ich habe da geografisch so ein kleines. Yeah, and he was also a volunteer with the DED at the same time where I was in Burkina, and he was working mainly on operating and maternity care and so forth. And now you are a very senior figure in this world of obstetrics and gynecology in the global south. And here I hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Rainer. And we have heard many conversations about the field and the importance of Jochen Diesfeld in the field of tropical medicine, of public health. And so I will address the importance of Jochen Diesfeld for women's health and for the formation of physicians and midwives. And when I was invited, thank you very much for the invitation. Some weeks ago, I asked my friends in our group FIDE. We have the honor to present obstetrician and gynecology. I has received 60 pictures, and I can't refuse one. So I will show these 60 pictures like a film in very short intervals. I will begin with a picture of Jochen Diesfeld during his last conference in Tutzing last year. Thank you very much, Wolfgang Grah, for this picture. Behind Jochen Diesfeld, Rudolf Virchow. And I know that Virchow has a very big importance for the political thinking and the medical thinking of Jochen. And after this presentation, Jochen, yes, yeah, I think I've seen. And after this session, there was 5-10 minutes of standing graduations, and then Jochen present our new picture, our new book, Global Women's Health. I have the chance to speak with Jochen in his house with his wife some times when he have a conference in Munich, and so we could stay and we have discussed nearly the major part of the night, and I have learned the thinking of Jochen very personally, and I mentioned him that he has founded with us the FIDE organization. This was in '94 in Heidelberg, and we have cooperated in the former tropical medicine group of the University of Heidelberg. And then we have performed the first conference of our FIDE organization with Jochen Diesfeld and my former chief, Professor Bastard. And it was the first time in the German Society of Gynecology and Obstetrician that we have introduced in our discussion public health and tropical medicine. And there are many co-workers of the Institute of Jochen Diesfeld, Albrecht Jahn, Sigrid Hautz, Sike Wolters, and so many who founded with us, like obstetricians in '94 FIDE, and thanking of all the members of our group, we have more than 150 members. And the first 5 sessions was performed in Heidelberg. I think Heidelberg is one of the reasons, but also the contribution of the conference was the reason why we often met us in Heidelberg and later in Bruchsal. Here, some pictures of our conferences. And I'm very happy that our organization is now 30 years old and we have a new team in our board. So the work of Jochen helping to found FIDE in '94 was established. I done several years working seminars, workshops in Dori, in the northern part of Burkina Faso, with a friend of mine from Ethiopia, George Haile Georgis, and Yacouba Sanré. And we have had an accident near the palace of the Moronaba, and I was in contact with the Moronaba, and the Moronaba gave me one land for constructing a CSPS, and I want to diplomatically refuse this gift. But Jochen, my mentor, said, you can't refuse a gift from His Majesty, the Moronaba. And so I said, yes, we will do, and we have done fundraisers. I have wrote some literary books, and we have finished it. Without Jochen, I had refused, that is sure. Now, in the January this year, we have established, in the presence of the Minister of Health, our CSPS is a small CSPS, but there are some important things we have introduced, and we can perhaps discuss it later. And we have also good reactions. And we have discussed often in the course problems of female genital mutilation, and I have done some experience in Dori during the '86 until the '88, and we have had in Bruchsal many cases from the Erstaufnahmestelle in Karlsruhe, and so I could help some women from Somalia in the major part. And we have done a survey with Carlo Dene, asking the midwives for the reason why they have done this, and we got the answer, Burwell was the reason, and so I developed the theory with the correlation between female genital mutilation and female genital schistosomiasis. We have published with Professor Sieder from the University of Ouagadougou, and I think Jochen was one of the 10 people of the world who have understood this theory. And the next is the education formation of midwives. And since I have lost Dori in '88, I have an engagement in the midwife school, St. Edwige in Ouagadougou, and I'm very impressed the enthusiasm of the midwives in Burkina Faso, and I think they better than some midwives of our schools in Germany. We always operated each year at the first week of November, the woman with laceration with vesicovaginal fistula. This is our team. Each year we are going there. And also we have done some simple operations, the vaginal hysterectomy I have done with my friend Michael Stark from Jerusalem. We have established a very easy method for vaginal hysterectomy under the conditions of limited resources. We have focused our first book in German, and Jochen Diesfeld, who has given the Geleitwort, he said us, please, the next edition in English, please. So we have done this, Obstetrics Unplugged, now the third edition. Then Global Women's Health, and Jochen Diesfeld was convinced that the women's health is very important for the health of all in the world, for the children and all, for the whole family. And so we discussed it with Camilla Rothe from the University of Munich, with Michael Stark from Jerusalem. Here are some students. Here our working group, with some friends who are also here. Michelle Marx and our co-workers. And also I could discuss with Jochen the political situation very openly and very friendly. And we have also discussed this in 2016 after the attack in Ouagadougou with the cappuccino, coffee and the Hotel Splendid. Then I have learned very much from my friend Elliot, Ken Elliot, the urologist from Djibo, but he's now liberated. And before 2 years, he was free from Mali, and his wife was liberated earlier. Now he is in Australia back. I've heard he's still living. Yes, also the new politic, some said that Ibrahim Traoré will succeed Thomas Sankara. We will see. And when I going to Dori 2060, my old friends said, Jürgen, you have to change because it's very dangerous on the way between Ouagadougou and Dori. But I have had luck and I'm very healthy. This is the comment before the cappuccino in Ouagadougou. And I'm, Reinhard, you told me 10 minutes. This is the second last picture. Rudolf Virchow he was member of the parliament in Preußen, and he said one time that politics is medicine in great field. And I think it's also an idea from Jochen Diesfeld. And I wish him all the best with the last slide. Thank you very much, Jochen.
Hast du doch schnell gemacht. Toll gemacht. Jetzt kommt eine Videobotschaft von Steffen Flesser. Steffen Flesser was professor of health economics for 5 years, and then he moved to Greifswald in the north of Germany, and he insisted, I was impressed by Jochen, and I want to send a video message because he couldn't come in person. So let's,
Dear friends and colleagues, and in particular, dear family of Hans-Jochen Diesfeld, it's a great pleasure and honor to be granted this opportunity of greeting you today. I would have loved to be with you, but it's not possible due to other duties. My name is Steffen Flesser. I'm professor of healthcare management at the University of Greifswald. Before, I was lecturer of hospital management at the Masuka Management Training Institute in Tanzania, professor of nursing administration at the Evangelical University of Applied Sciences in Nuremberg, and professor of international health economics at the Institute of Tropical Hygiene of the University of Heidelberg, Hans-Jochen's former department. Most likely, I'm the person today with the lowest frequency of contacts with Hans-Jochen Diesfeld, but he had a profound impact on my life. It was during my time in Tanzania in the early 1990s when I first contacted him. I worked for the Evangelical Mission Society and had no scientific ambitions. Actually, I was quite suspicious against this artificial world of scientists, far away from the reality I experienced or thought I experienced in Africa. But I read the habilitation thesis and publication of Hans Jochen on catchment areas of hospitals in Kenya. I was inspired because this was great work, practical, relevant, professional, and scientifically sound. I actually wrote to him to ask further questions, but I did not expect that he would reply. But he answered me. This was really amazing. The famous and very busy professor from the famous University of Heidelberg answered a letter from a simple missionary and accountant in Tanzania. He took his time and helped me to understand. When I came back to Germany after 5 years, I wanted to meet him. And again, it was quite amazing that this important man took time to welcome me in Heidelberg. We had a great discussion, and it was the first time that I met Matomoro, Albrecht Jahn, Oliver Ratzum, and many others. At that time, I was a PhD student at the University of Erlangen, still struggling with my new role in Germany after several years in Africa. Actually, I did not really find a role model in my own university. I met some very nice people, full of integrity. But most of them, I think, were no good scientists. And I found great scientists, but none of them was the person I wanted to be in 20 years. And then I met Hans-Jochen Diesfeld, a gifted scientist with a great reputation and lots of publication. At the same time, a humble and warm person, full of integrity. In the last 30 years as a scientist, I have met only few other scientists who are great professionals and admirable characters at the same time. It was a meeting of less than 1 hour, but it gave me the impression that it is possible to become a scientist, do meaningful work for our partners in low-income countries, and remain a character of integrity. Scientifically, I followed his footsteps in the field of catchment analysis. No long ago, we did a catchment analysis of hospitals in northern Germany, the location where I'm now, in order to indicate the impact of closing down pediatric and obstetric wards in the area. Until today, I'm inspired by the short impressions I had from the scientific work of Hans-Jochen Diesfeld. On this chart here, you see the catchment analysis of 3 hospitals before pediatrics and obstetric care was closed down in Wolgast. You see the catchment areas and the accessibility of the hospitals. If we now compare this with the situation without Wolgast, then you will realize that the population on the island of Usedom in the northeast of our area here will have an accessibility problem. They will have to travel much longer to get obstetric and pediatric services. The situation changes, of course, when we keep the pediatric ward and obstetric ward in Wolgast and close down the hospital of Anklam. If we concentrate now all pediatric and obstetric services in the University Hospital of Greifswald, we get an accessibility problem on the island of Usedom, in particular in the east. Many people will have to travel more than 40 minutes to reach a hospital, which is really an issue here in Germany. Dear colleagues, the main legacy of Hans-Jochen on me is not his scientific work, but his openness to welcome me as a very young and unimportant scientist. He gave me inspiration. He helped me to reconcile my scientific ambitions and my dedication of serving the vulnerable. And whenever I met him in the course of the years, he was an inspiration and a blessing. I'm grateful that I knew him, and it's an honor to share my thoughts with you today. Thank you very much.
I think this idea of integrity has come up so often in so many testimonials that this is a nice transition to Oliver's talk now. Oliver is talking about the moral fabric of Hans-Jochen. Welcome. Do I need to introduce you? Oliver is one of the shooting stars of Jochen Diesfeld. He habilitated in Heidelberg and went straight through the roof to Bielefeld University Health Sciences as a professor and dean. Are you still dean there? No. No, okay. But you were for a long time. It's amazing. So, over to you. Oh.
Thank you very much, Rainer, although this is not the introduction that I like to have. I would like to continue a line of thought that Till Berninghausen and Samuel Mayerdin developed earlier on in this session. And it's about us in the global north and our privileged lives and how we have been rethinking our role in global health. We now see ourselves more as allies and supporters of colleagues in the global south. And Sheye Abimbola and Maduka Pai have captured this very nicely when they wrote, "Global health practitioners in high-income countries and those who are otherwise privileged have embraced an appropriately modest view of their importance and mastered the art of critical allyship, where they see their primary role as allies and enablers rather than leaders." Of course, a few decades ago, this was different. From positions of political and economic power, the global north often claimed the right to decide the fate of other people, or at least to steer them in convenient directions. This outlook, which was shaped by colonial thinking, also entered science, resting on assumptions of intellectual superiority and on the idea that knowledge from the north was more relevant. This has changed, but slowly and tediously. The move towards an equity-based perspective did not happen by itself. It was advanced by people who combined principle with patience and practice. Jochen Diesfeld was one of them. It required years of hard political work in expert bodies and advisory boards because structures needed to be changed. In the preface of his collected works, published in 2022, Jochen Diesfeld wrote that the volume, I quote, "is also meant in all modesty as a tribute to our founding father of public health, Rudolf Virchow. To use his words, I too place in this retrospective the political dimension of medical practice at the center." End of quote. That is right, yet I think it understates what I take to be the center of Jochen's work, and that is his moral courage and his integrity. This is best seen through the lens offered by Susan Neiman in Moral Clarity, a guide for grown-up idealists. Neiman's idea is straightforward. Moral clarity means recognizing what is wrong, naming it plainly, and working to fix it in a practical, reasoned way. It is not showy or dogmatic. It is steady work. Say what needs changing, then do the work. to change it. That applies to Jochen's push away from a Eurocentric, colonially tinged tropical medicine towards a global health perspective that foregrounds equity. Let me give you one example of how Jochen's field experience reshaped his questions and priorities. It may seem small, but it was not. In the 1980s and 1990s, as you have heard from Rainer, medical students from the Global South studied at German universities, yet curricula had hardly considered the healthcare structures and needs in their home countries, where the priority was health for all rather than high-tech diagnoses and therapies for the few rich people. Jochen Diesfeld learned from Stefan Schubert in Leipzig, then in the former GDR, how medical training could be reoriented. Jochen and his team then set out to put similar changes into practice in West Germany. Let us listen for just 1 minute to Jochen himself, recalling what an uphill struggle this was.
Mich dazu angeregt, aus unseren Kursen in Heidelberg einen eigenen Kursangebot zu entwickeln, dieses Modell in die deutsche Approbationsordnung einzubringen, auch dort den ausländischen Studenten sozusagen ein fachliches Ticket zu vermitteln, damit sie zu Hause besser arbeiten können. Das ist an den Gralshütern der Approbationsordnung gescheitert. Wir haben Tage verbracht, Wochen, ich weiß nicht wie lange, im Bildungsministerium in Bonn, mit diesen Leuten zu diskutieren, kann man nicht alternativ zu einem völlig irrationalen deutschen Curriculumsanteil, der für Ausländer total unwichtig ist, ihnen ein anderes Angebot machen, wo immer man es dann organisiert.
Here is the English translation of the video. We wanted to give medical students from the Global South a kind of professional ticket, something that would help them work more effectively once they returned home. But the plan failed because of the guardians of the medical licensing regulations. We spent days and weeks at the Ministry of Education in Bonn trying to convince them. Why not replace a completely irrational part of the German curriculum, one that is useless for these students, with something more useful? Jochen did not give up. He and his team developed the seminar series for medical students, Gesundheitsversorgung in Entwicklungsländern, Healthcare in Developing Countries, with Wolfgang Bichmann and several other colleagues present here today. And the Ärzteprogramm, the doctor's program, including a diploma course with Dieter Hampel. That openness and persistence were integral elements of Jochen's moral clarity. He identified problems clearly and then worked to correct them, in this case, even turning ideas into institutions. The short video lets you grasp, literally, with your eyes and ears, what Jochen stood for. Learning from others on the quality of evidence, not ideology. Stefan Schubert was working on the wrong side of the Iron Curtain at that time. Translating insights into action, here engaging with politics. Persisting even when this meant a frustrating uphill struggle. Finding alternative solutions when the original plan did not work. Thinking for the common good, not for particular interests or personal career, even when self-serving shortcuts tempted. Niemann criticizes today's public debate that has shifted from "is it right?" to "will it work?", a technocratic narrowing. Jochen refused that narrowing and did not give in to the fashionable cynicism that says, nothing really changes, so why bother? That would be surrender. Instead, he continued to do what he believed was right for the common good, in the best possible way, despite disappointments and despite obstacles. What I'm offering here is not a hagiography. Jochen Diesfeld was fallible, as we all are. But as Susan Niemann reminds us, moral seriousness is not the absence of error. It is the willingness to act from principle despite the risk of error and to accept correction. For example, Jochen began his career within the older tropical medicine paradigm, disease-specific work, and north-south knowledge transfer. Over time, and while working in the global south, he came to see that frame as too narrow. He tellingly titled the volume of his collected works Von Tropenmedizin zu Global Public Health, thereby publicly reflecting on this shift, which is exactly the kind of grown-up moral seriousness Niemann describes. In closing, let me return to the citation about global health practitioners in high-income countries. Dismantling supremacy is essential, and so is the universality of human rights. Decolonizing global health is overdue, but it should not be used as a pretext to delegitimize universal claims about justice and human dignity. Universal moral claims are not by default colonial. As Susan Niemann argues, they give us the language to name and to confront injustice across contexts. From our conversations, I believe Jochen would agree with this non-ideological Niemannesque interpretation. I have tried to outline what I mean by the moral clarity that Jochen taught us. His moral courage and integrity are, to me, his most enduring legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Oliver. What a wonderful thought at the end, and I'm glad we have you at the end of this, because the character of Jochen and his intellectual legacy are intertwined, and one cannot be understood without the other, and you have shown this so nicely. So, what a wonderful series of testimonies, and in front of us the picture of Jochen emerges, and his influence. Legacy is a kind of very high-level word, but influence, where he, with his modest and his persistent ways, influenced generations of us and continues, as we have heard from Samuel. This is wonderful. Now, we have prepared a little snack and reception, but there's one last piece of music which you have to endure. It's very short, 1.5 pages only. And then we are done. Again, Stefan, and I'm accompanying him. Sonst wäre der Jochen nicht zufrieden mit uns. Denen danken, die das erst möglich gemacht haben. Und das zunächst einmal natürlich. Kommt jetzt davon. Ist die Miriam da von der IT? Miriam ist noch da? Gegangen. Wir haben gezählt 3012 E-Mails beantwortet. Und hier kommt die Miriam. Hat alles so wunderbar geklappt. Auch die Techniker da hinten. Ja, der Techniker von der Uni. Vielen Dank. Ah, sehr gut. Kriegst du auch ein paar Blumen. Einfach rüber. Wenn die Tal ist direkt links, wenn Sie weitergehen, da ist das aufgetischt und da können wir uns noch ein bisschen unterhalten. Viele von uns haben uns ja gerade erst wieder nach 20 Jahren etwa kennengelernt.
Und bitte alles mitnehmen, weil die alte Aula jetzt abgeschlossen wird und
oh.
alles weiter.
les gens hésitent de